Okay, so here we are at chapter 3. Let's see what happens to her in this chapter. Remember, they asked her to be keeper of the blades. The keeper of the blades. Tommy was swelling with pride as she walked across the courtyard to the armory the next morning, ready to start her new job. Even as Mrs. Moon had been impressed that Sir Benedict himself had come to the kitchen. After the knight had left, she filled a bowl with hearty bean soup for Tommy, and even better, she gave Tommy a tunic and a pair of leggings that her son had outgrown, much more suitable for a keeper of the blades than a torn dress, the cook had remarked. When she entered the armory, the first thing Tommy noticed was the noise. The blacksmith was bent over a sturdy wooden bench, hammering a large sheet of metal. The sound echoed off the stone walls, which glowed with the light from the fireplace set against the back wall. As her eyes had adjusted to the dim light, Tommy looked around. She saw an assortment of shields and breastplates, helmets and swords, all waiting for repair. When the blacksmith paused in his hammering, Tommy stepped forward. "Good morning, sir," she said. "I'm Tommy, the new keeper of the blades." The blacksmith straightened up and squinted at her from under a pair of big, bushy eyebrows. "So you're the new sword girl, huh? Well, you can drop the sir and just call me Smith. Everybody does. Right then, I'll show you what's what." Smith beckoned for Tommy to follow him. "That's the forge," he said, pointing to the fireplace. "If we need to reshape a piece of armor, we put it in the fire there. The heat softens it so we can bend it easily. We only do repairs here, though. The weapons and armor are made by the smiths in town." Tommy felt a prickle of excitement. She knew that many of the castle's needs were supplied by the merchants and tradesmen in the town just outside the castle walls. Most days, the drawbridge across the moat was busy with carts and horses going back and forth between the castle and the town. As a kitchen girl, Tommy had never visited the town, but maybe as keeper of the blades, she would. There were doors on either side of the forge. Smith led Tommy to the door on the left. "This is the sword chamber," he said. "First time we had a girl in the job that I can remember, but I suppose Sir Benedict knows what he's doing." Tommy stood at the doorway of the low-ceiling room. There were no windows, but the light from a candle on the wall to the right of the door was reflected in the gleaming blades, lining 3 walls of long, narrow chamber. Tommy thought she had never seen a more beautiful sight. The long wall facing her was lined with swords standing in wooden racks, and in the shadows to her left she could just make out a smaller rack of swords. To her right, daggers hung by their hilts from iron pegs which had been hammered into the stone wall. "You're to keep the blades polished and sharp and ready for the night. You got plenty of cloths here and a pot of oil for polishing. And there's your file and whetstone for sharpening. If any repairs are needed, you bring them to me. Simple enough, sword girl?" "Yes, Smith," Tommy breathed without taking her eyes from the dazzling array of swords. As soon as the blacksmith left the room and she could hear the muffled clang of his hammer, Tommy pulled a sword from the long rack. It was so much heavier than a broom, but she liked the weight of it. She liked the way the steel blade sliced the air, like the smooth feel of the wooden grip. So there's some pictures for you if I can get it. She had just replaced the sword in its rack when the hammering in the armory stopped. "You're late," Smith said gruffly. "Never mind that," said a familiar voice. "Has Sir Benedict been in? Did he say anything about making me keeper of the blades?" It was Reynard, Tommy realized. But what did he mean about Sir Benedict making him keeper of the blades? She stepped closer to the door to listen. "Sir Benedict didn't say nothing about you being keeper of the blades, lad," the blacksmith replied. "The new sword girl is already here." "Sword girl? What are you talking about, Smith?" "See for yourself," said Smith. And before Tommy could move away from the doorway, Reynard was there, his red hair coppery in the candlelight. "You!" he cried. He turned to call over his shoulder. "She isn't keeper of the blades, Smith. She's just a kitchen girl." "Not according to Sir Benedict," said the blacksmith calmly. "He reckons she's a sword girl, and if Sir Benedict reckons it, it must be so." Reynard turned to glare at Tommy. He seemed to be vibrating with anger as he said in a menacing whisper, "We'll see about that." And that's the